when I grow up. I do not want to be like Bailey and Curly. No way. I have higher standards than that.
They make me laugh. At the same time, scare the shit out of me. What will they say next?
Welcome to the roller coaster world of Bailey and Curly. Unfiltered. While this voice may be artificial, the unfiltered musings from our hosts certainly are not. Make yourself comfortable, grab a drink, and let's get unfiltered. Here's your hosts, Bailey and Curly.
Welcome to Bailey and Curly Unfiltered. Geez, that went a little bit longer. I didn't have much to go. God, I jumped it too early. How are you, Bailey, down there in Melbourne?
Oh, Mount Gambier today. But good, Curly. How are you?
So, SA. I've got my good friends in SA that are up here in Queensland at the moment, up there in Townsville, just about to record their next little bit of music.
That's right.
Hey,
we talked about that last week.
For our loyal listeners, you may have been a bit perturbed by the fact that we started with what would appear to be a bit of a dance music hit. Now, why did we do that, Bailey? Why did we start with that little piece of music?
We did, because I've got a new song coming out, Crew Life, the 4 a.m. remix. And as
the 4 a.m. remix.
And as we discovered last week, it doesn't stand for electronic drive management.
EDM, email direct marketing,
direct marketing.
So it stands for electronic dance mix, is that right, or something like that?
Dance music, yeah. Yep.
Wow, that's last week we dissected Crew Life pretty in depth, and this week we started with the reincarnation of Crew Life. So do we get that sort of dance, methodical trance beat for 6 minutes like the original?
Well, here's where you and maybe a lot of people will be happy. The total length of this track is 3 minutes 22.
3:22. Awesome. So why dance music, Bales? Well, when you follow your musical career, like you and I know that you have tried your hardest to not to have much of your old music out and about, but the reality is that there's a bit of punk in the music that you put out very early, a little bit of solo acoustic punk, and now we look at what you're doing and it's dance music. What a transition, and why?
I think I've spoken about this before. Like, artists get labelled as a genre, and I feel like that's all they sort of put out. And I like when an artist goes a different direction. And yeah, like growing up listening to Green Day and Blink, I always wanted to be in a punk band, but I think it just never happened. And I think I fell in love with just being solo and doing my thing. And then, you know, the EP that you have heard, which I love that you love, but I'm embarrassed by it because the songwriting and production was just not there compared to, like, it just makes me cringe now. And, you know, it took me a while to find my sound. I remember when I released Crew Life, I think you used the word pop to describe.
Yeah, it was a nice little pop tune.
Yeah. So obviously so I love all types of music.
Yeah.
Obviously punk at heart, you know, growing up in the early to mid 2000s, that was, you know, very special time. And obviously starting the EP in August 2019, and then lockdown happened.
Yep.
You know, there was 9 months between March I was up in Canberra and then December last year. That was the time. But you know, I think it was about October, I think, I brought to the
Yep.
attention. I'm like, you know, I describe it as, I always I always refer to music as in like you're having a baby, you know, like you sort of, you don't, you know, tell the world, you know, until you're pregnant until like, you know, 3 months, whatever it is.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
you
Whatever
know,
the accepted time frame is
yeah,
before you start showing.
in case there is complications or whatever, and very similar to the remix. I was like, I kept it quiet for a bit, and now it's, you know, almost here. It's
Yep.
good to be able to talk about it, but you know, imagine, you know, you and your partner, you're having a baby. You know, it's about 9 months, 8 to 9 months. You're gonna have
Yep.
the baby. Imagine getting to 9 months and then saying, "Oh no, it's gonna be in there for another year or so." That's how I treated the EP because I couldn't do anything. It was
Yep.
killing me inside not to put out anything. And I'm like, you know what? What can I put out before this EP? Because I know the EP is probably going to be a good year or so away. And I thought, well, Crew Life did really well. I really love dance music. It'd be cool to hear that in a nightclub. Not that you could probably ever get me in a nightclub. Nightclub at home, maybe. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought, you know what? You know, I rang Mark and I said, look, this is what I can do. And he's never done one before, and he's done such a good job. And, you know, behind every great musician is a great producer. Like, they're the real rock stars. Like, musicians aren't who they are without the producers. They just bring the best. They bring the best out of the artist. So, yeah, that's why I decided the remix, because I love dance music, and it was something that Mark could do without actually me being in the studio.
Yeah.
So he's just taken my vocals, and then he's, you know, done everything else himself.
So when I look at the album For the Tough Times, right,
Yeah,
which is
tough times and long nights.
Yeah, you've got such the song titles, mate: Pepperoni Pizza, Dr. Pepper, and a comedy, right?
Yeah.
You wrote a song called "I'm Mathew Bailey," just in case anyone else didn't realise that. So this is the music that you're now trying to disappear. So I think next time we do some screen sharing, I might play just some snippets of that scene that we can get a play away just to embarrass you. So
mate,
but I think it's all a journey. I mean, I look at a lot of the videos that I put out in as a coach in the early days, and I think, what the fuck was I thinking? Or how dorky did that sound? And you know, I think it's just a constant evolution for all of us. We just continue to get better at what it is. So
you've got to put it out. You can't sit at home and go, you know, I'll start this when I'm ready, because you're not ready. You need to go out and do it to then get to the position where you are now. And exactly for me, like I said, I'm embarrassed by those tracks, and I think a lot of it was like, you know, there's no real meaning behind those Pepperoni Pizza tracks. Like there is, but you know, like, and I'm going to use a dad joke here. You know, I've been riding the Crew Life plane for 2 years, and I often think, I'm like, are people sick of it? Like, you know, you've heard it for the last 2 years, but then there's someone that I might meet today that's never heard it. So you got to keep promoting it. And I think for the remix, another reason I'm putting it out is it's a business decision as well. So who knows where that could go. But, you know, with the EP, like I said, I wanted something to come out that was different before the EP, because I know the EP is going to hopefully lead to some real tough conversations, because I got really vulnerable on this EP. And, you know, I feel like people that, like, you've known me for a couple of years, so you know the good and the bad. And I guess there's people that I've met since releasing Crew Life, like, oh, this Matt Bailey guy just thinks he's funny with his Crew Life. And then once the EP will come out, like, oh shit, like he's got, you know, he's got vulnerable on this. And, you know, like I said, a lot of people took Crew Life like, oh, this dude's just joking, he's a piss taker. But then there's other people that are like, shit, Matt stepped up his game. The production on this is amazing, and the video was amazing, you know.
Yeah.
So it was
absolutely
sort of like the first time it felt like a business, and I'm like, I've got to treat this like a business, because it's
what were some of the choices, Matt, that were going through your head? Was dance music the lay down the choice, or was there other things that you were thinking you could do with Crew Life?
There was an acoustic version,
Yeah, that'd be
You
cool.
know, yeah, like stripped back. But obviously, me, I couldn't be there. I thought it'd be simple. It wasn't. And then it was a remix. I just love dance music. It makes you feel different, and it is a catchy song, and I
Yeah.
can't wait. I can't wait for the world to hear it. It's
So everyone's waiting to hear it, Matt. What sort of date are you looking at? Last time I think we spoke, it was you were looking at June. Is that
yeah,
still? The,
still looking at June.
yeah,
I think this weekend I'll know more.
yeah,
A couple of days ago, I got the latest mix, and it's pretty much there. Like the structure, like I said, I know how long it is.
yeah.
It's just a few things that he needs to work on. Hopefully over the weekend as well. So yeah, it's I'm glad you played that thing, because when it comes out, you'll be like, oh, that bit's not in it anymore. The intro's changed. So
Ah,
yeah,
so you're still tricking us. All right.
yeah,
Okay.
mate.
Hey,
Yeah,
let's talk a little bit about some news around the world. After all, we are in the news commentary section on your favorite major podcast platform. So we do need to talk. Of course, it's always news when Matt Bailey's getting ready for some music, but let's talk about some other news. Hey, look, vaccinations. Now, first up, I know your mum's been in Melbourne, um,
she
hasn't she?
has.
So now you're back in Mount Gambier. So
Yeah.
what happened there? That's news.
So
That's
that was
what happened there.
yeah. She came over Easter Monday, which is good.
Yeah,
And I can't remember if I announced on the podcast. I think I did. Qantas Link are now flying to Mount Gambier,
yeah,
which is sort of like really emotional for me. Like it's all I've wanted for years. And I look back at the time when I lived in Hobart, and it was I'd have to fly over, and then I usually just drive or
yeah.
bus and train. But then I could if I lived in Hobart, I could fly. It's just crazy. The time is changing. So yeah, Mum came over to Melbourne, flew over. I had work anyway, picked her up so I was at the airport. Spent a couple of days there, and then my first flight to Mount Gambier, I had her on the plane. So that was really cool. So bring your mum
so,
to work day.
yeah, so you can request flight paths, or how does that work?
No, I can't, but I can request shifts,
Yeah,
sort of thing.
gotcha.
Yeah, so like depending on what time you want to start, and yeah, so no, pretty cool to be flying. I haven't actually flown to Mount Gambier yet
Yeah,
on the Qantas Link jet plane, I should
okay,
say. But I will be in a couple of weeks when I'm back here.
awesome,
So yeah,
awesome.
no, it's just good. It was so bizarre to have Mum in Melbourne after so long, and
Yeah,
then to be able to show her my place and where I live, and yeah,
yeah. Shout out to Karen.
Karen.
So big shout out to Karen. So interesting. Hey Matt, last week the NRL had the magic round of footy up here in Brisbane. They had how many 9 games up here in Brizzy, which
Oh,
is
wow.
what they call magic round. The week before, I think, or 2 weeks before, they were calling it tragic round because of the fact that New South Wales had a COVID case, and there was some real fears that the people wouldn't be able to travel, and that Anastasia would lock down the borders and everything. But they got through that, but it still ended up being a tragic round because the NRL decided that 13 players was far too many to have on the footy field, and started sin binning like it was nobody's business. And there's a real fear in the NRL about concussions and head injuries, and
Of
people coming
course,
back
yeah.
in 20 years and suing them. And I think that the reaction that they had, while we all want players to be safe, I mean, I look at the AFL, and I look at people doing those big screamer specky marks, and that's the game. That's the magic of the game. You see people leaping onto people's backs and shoulders, and then they come crashing down to earth, and they could land head first, shoulder first, back first, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the game. And yet in rugby league now, we're penalising or sin binning, or at worst case scenario, sending people off because they've made contact with their head. So, I think rugby league is in this really interesting space at the moment because a lot of people are saying it's not the game it used to be. Of course it wasn't. We used to knock people's heads off, and that's how, way back in the 70s, it was a game of thugs, but it's no longer a game of thugs. And now the only contact that people have around the head, it can be accidental. It's certainly not intentional. No one's going out there to knock people's heads off. But if you brush someone's head, you run the risk now that there'll be a penalty and that your team will be playing a man short. So I think it's really interesting because the guy running the game, Peter V'landys, is a bit of a dictator, and he wants to take it to the AFL. And at the moment, it's chalk and cheese. I've got no doubt that a lot of people in AFL are probably sitting and bemoaning the fact that their game has changed so much. But I still see a game where there's contact. I still see a game where, the speckies are being taken. I still see a game where, the thing that would frustrate me as a player in AFL is that you're going for the ball and you don't have that peripheral vision of people around you or behind you. And all of a sudden you can just get a whack out of nowhere that you're not expecting. That creates a whiplash sort of a scenario, I'd imagine. So, but... Yeah, I reckon NRL. I actually did a website a couple of years back, and I pulled it before I launched it because I was spending too much time on it. But it was actually called RIP Rugby League because I just thought the game is going to die.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I still firmly believe that. I think we'll end up with like a touch football scenario or a grab scenario. I think the big hits and the massive contact, which is what people watch the game for, will be eradicated from the game. And I think that's such a huge shame. So, I think in 5 years' time, AFL's the number one sport now, and I think it will be the number one sport by a long way in 5 years' time because I think rugby league's lost its way. Speaking of which, I'm going to the Lions tonight. Lions to play the Richmond Tigers. And now, if I remember rightly, you've been to a Saints game.
I've been to a couple.
Yeah.
We lost the first two I went to, and then we absolutely demolished Hawthorn by 69 points the last game I went to.
Hawthorn are actually my... the team that I've supported, and I've been a casual AFL supporter probably all my life, and I just followed Hawthorn because I thought you've got to be a brave club to have brown as one of your colours.
So I said to the guys the other day, I'm like, who chose their colours?
So, I've sort of been, and, Hawks have been mildly successful would be a very much an understatement. So, I followed scores and whatnot, but now, I'm a Lions member. I support the Lions, but, I also follow Hawthorn. So, it was noted that the Saints knocked over Hawks.
Yeah, it's funny.
And
as you were talking about the NRL, I was just sitting there, like, digesting and thinking, like, I miss the days of, like, just watching footy for, like, being a kid or whatever, and just not even noticing what else goes around, all the politics that are involved and all that stuff. And it wasn't until last year being able to watch every game live because there was no football down here last year. It was just like, like where's and now like as a kid, I loved every team. Like obviously I followed the Saints, but like I also followed players. Like I remember being a kid and meeting Shane Crawford and just being like, holy crap, it's Shane Crawford.
Yeah.
And now, I don't know if you'll probably be able to elaborate on this. Is it Port Adelaide want their bars back? The prison bars?
Yeah.
And it's just like,
There's a little bit of a whisper. And once again, what you're seeing there is that Port want to shift the goalposts. So they were brought into the league as Port Adelaide. Port Power, not Port Adelaide. And, now they want to shift the goalposts and recognise their South Australian AFL heritage, and I probably don't have a great deal of problem with that. But the reality is that Collingwood have been in the AFL a lot longer than Port. So, but the tip is, from what I'm hearing, I think it's Port and Collingwood this week. And, if Port win, after the showdown win at against the Crows 2 weeks back, Port put on their Prison Bar jerseys for the team song. So they played in their Port Power jersey, and then as they came into the sheds, they stripped into their Prison Bar jersey and did the team song. And you can imagine Eddie Maguire was just so happy with that. He just went ballistic. But the tip is that if they knock over Collingwood this week, they'll be doing exactly the same. And won't that send a message? So it's going to be really interesting. But
that'll make a statement.
I just, I think AFL are just streets ahead. They know what their game looks like. They know how to make tweaks to it to make it a better game. You watch it live and there's so much going on, whereas in rugby league it's all on the ball. Everything's on the ball. It's such a game for TV that it's not funny, whereas AFL's best watched live. Yeah. So at the game, and that's why you get 100,000 at the G,
Yeah. And when I went to the Hawthorn game, as much as I only did it because I hadn't done it in years, or maybe not ever. I sat behind the goals.
Yeah,
it was good, but you're forever looking up at the screen.
At the screens,
So I think when I go next time, it'll be on the side again, which is you can see everything, and it's good.
Yeah, we sort of sit around at like a 45-degree angle, and we sort of always try and get our seats at the Gabba in the non-drinking area. Just because some people are, like I can deal with it at the footy because I've got at Suncorp because we've got really great seats right on the 50-metre line. Yeah. But some people can get up 4 times during a half of football to come back with 4 beers, and you think
you've got to move your legs.
Yeah, you're here for the fucking football, mate. You're not here to get pissed, and especially when you're buying like little plastic cups at $10 a pop, and I'm thinking, mate, surely you've got better things to do with your money. So we sit in the non-drinking section at the Gabba. Yeah, which is really weird because I actually quite enjoy a beer, as you know. But it's just you just get a much better appreciation of the game. And it's interesting you're bagging Hawthorn. I see that we were even kind enough to give North Melbourne their first win of the season last week. So yeah. But anyway, hey, look. I know we're on a bit of a time frame today because it's Friday morning and we've both got things to do, and I've got a couple of coaching sessions I've got to prep for, but we want to do a quick chat about vaccinations, don't we? So, because and once again, I think you were saying, what's the new advice coming out of America?
If you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask.
Yeah. And it's interesting the journey they've taken because they said a couple of weeks back, if you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask outside. And so that was stage 1. And I don't know if you're on TikTok, but there was a lot of like Democrats putting on the thing, doing their little TikTok saying, "Oh, how good I don't have to wear a mask outside." And then they're saying, "Oh no, but I'm going to keep it on so people don't think I'm a Republican." And I just think, you goose. So
the thing is with this, and you might better elaborate for me. How do you? Let's just say I lived in America, maybe one day. You don't wear a mask. Do you have to prove you're vaccinated?
I've got no idea. I've got no idea how that works.
I'm assuming you have to wear a mask everywhere over there. Let's just say, I don't know, a coffee shop. You walk in without a mask, someone's like, "Where's your mask?" You say, "I'm vaccinated." Is that the conversation? Or
well, everyone's talking about this vaccination passport, and I really hope it doesn't get to that case. But there's states over there that have ignored the mask mandate. So Florida and Texas, those Republican states and fundamentally they've actually got much better results out of COVID than some of the Democrat states where you've got to walk around and cower around a corner just in case COVID's going to get you. So it's a really interesting state of affairs that the states where you don't have to wear a mask are actually coming out of it much stronger. So, but I don't know. I'd hate to see a vaccination passport. I'm actually quite surprised that you in your role hasn't been forced into a vaccination.
Yeah, well, we're all sort of waiting for it, but I guess, I don't know, with the little numbers in Australia we have, but, Yeah, it's a weird thing because last year we're made to believe the vaccine is the answer, and
Yeah,
now the vaccine's here, and the vaccine won't stop a lockdown. It won't stop curfews. It won't stop border closures. So
yeah,
like if I got it and then went into lockdown, I'd be like, why the fuck did I get this sort of thing? But like I don't really look at it as in getting COVID, and you can probably still get the virus with the vaccine, and
yeah, yeah.
so
And the reality is, Matt, is that me and you both could have had COVID and just didn't even realize it.
yeah, exactly. Because
So, and how many people in Australia have actually had COVID and didn't even realize it? So,
yeah,
but also importantly with that, they probably didn't spread it.
no,
So there's
no,
just so many questions to ask. And, you look at India at the moment and if you read the media and believe the media, people are dying in the streets and, all this sort of stuff. But, I've seen videos of people that are walking down main streets of Mumbai and places, and it's business as usual. There's people everywhere and they're saying, don't believe the hype. We're not dying in the streets. And I think you said because of the population, there's tens of thousands of people that die there every day anyway.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, so it's still really interesting, and I think testing is really, just befuddles me. Like the first plane that they brought back from India when the curfew was lit, or when the border opened back to them, there was 40 odd people that couldn't make the plane because they tested positive, which is okay. I'm presuming you don't want positive COVID cases coming into Australia willingly. But then there was a statement made in the media that they were expecting others in who actually flew to test positive when they landed. So I'm thinking, how does this virus work? You either have it or you don't. And it's not like the virus says, "You beauty, we're here in Australia. Time to get tested or time to come out." I just don't get it. I think the test, you hear about false positives, and then people have 3 negatives, then a positive, then a positive, then a negative, then a positive, and you just think, is the test the issue?
Yeah, it's like mate I caught up with last night. He said he went to the basketball the other night and he hasn't worn a mask since. Like he's never worn a mask during the whole thing, and he walked into the basketball stadium and said, "You need to wear a mask, but you don't have to wear one if you're in front of the canteen." So, like, like if airports obviously you have to wear one, but if you're walking through the airport with a drink in your hand, you don't have to wear a mask.
Yeah. And I'll tell you quite honestly, when I was in Adelaide and we walked into the terminal to come home.
Isn't Adelaide a bloody shit show there?
It's just like a big regional airport that's growing up. That's the way I sort of look at it. But
big Brisbane city.
But we waited outside because we had a bit of time and we didn't want to waste that time sitting there with a fucking mask on inside.
Yeah.
So we've gone in, checked in, did the bag drop, all that sort of stuff. But there was a group of probably 20 people that just walked in without masks and just started doing what you would normally do, check in and all of that. And not one person said, put your mask on, because there's signs everywhere, mask within the building.
Yeah.
And they only put it on when they went through security. So it didn't worry me. I just observed it. So, I thought good on them, but not one person actually, not whether it was another passenger or an official or a person from the airline, not one person said, you do realize you should have your mask on, So I just wondered how people must be sick of trying to enforce it as well,
Yeah, exactly. Like, shoot myself in the foot here, but I don't really, I make a PA on the plane.
Yeah.
That's my job, to make a PA. You hear, it's like no smoking on the plane. You hear that, no smoking. You hear you have to put a mask on. I've done my job. I'm not going to tell you 100 times. Like, we're all adults,
Yeah.
especially when I don't agree with wearing masks anyway. But
and I guess part of your role would be if you've got a person that is going to object. If so, just say you've got the person on the window seat not wearing a mask, and the person beside them is objecting to that and that's when you'd probably deal with it. But
yeah, that sort of happened at the start, like, oh, this person isn't wearing a mask and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, like all you need to say is you've got an exemption and that's it. Can't have to ask. That's on the government's website.
Yeah. Which, when you think about it, an exemption is still putting other people at risk. So I understand exemptions, but it's quite an interesting thing. Hey, we're just about to run, but I do want to say I went have you ever heard of float tanks?
Float tanks?
Yeah.
No. Are you in a tank and it's cold or hot?
Yeah, it's really cool actually. So we Sharon and I did a float tank Friday night, and what it is water that's been warmed to your body temp, so like 34 degrees, I think it is, filled with magnesium and other stuff that just makes it so easy to float. They then turn the lights off, and basically you float for an hour just in this dark room. And
isn't there a colour? Is there a light in your tank?
It is when you go in, but once you hit the light, it just goes, mate. And
it's warm, and it's warm water.
Yeah, and the experience is really quite cool. I struggled after about 40 minutes because I suffer from sinus, and you know, when you're sitting in absolute silence, you're sort of floating around this tank, all you can hear is yourself trying to breathe. So, coming to the 40-minute mark. But when I asked Sharon, I said I felt I must have been distracting you. She said, no, I didn't hear you, because all she was hearing was herself.
Her breath. Yeah.
But it's really unique because you sort of lose sight of your body and you just sort of become at one with the water. So we're certainly going to be doing it again. So now, highly recommended the float tank.
Are you in there naked or bathers? Or?
Absolutely stark nude. And once again, it doesn't it just sort of enhances the experience. So yeah, it was pretty cool. So highly recommended. Get out there and get a float happening. So what's happening? Yeah. So what's happening for yourself over the next week?
Oh mate, everything. I've got head back to Melbourne today, and then next Saturday up to Canberra.
Yeah.
To work on song 2 for the EP, because one song's sort of fully done. And it's up to Canberra on the Saturday for the day and just work. That's about it.
Awesome. Well, I've got the footy tonight. Got a little bit of work to do around the house. I catch up with an old mate who went to Birdsville for the last couple of weeks on Sunday. And then another pretty manic sort of a week happening next week. This week's been manic. We're in the middle of Queensland Small Business Month, so there's events happening everywhere, and I've spoken at a few. So it continues next week. So I'm sort of looking forward to next Friday when I can start getting some work done on some of my projects. So it'll be good.
Awesome.
Always a pleasure, Mathew Bailey. Thanks for listening, everyone. So take care. Tune in for next. When are we catching up again? A fortnight?
If you want, man.
Will we have your date for your song by then?
Hopefully. I'll know more this weekend. I'll know more this weekend, and I'll shoot you a message.
So subscribe, listen, do a shit review if you hated it. That's all right. We don't mind.
No.
2 weeks' time, you may hear it from the man himself when Crew Life, the dance mix, gets released. Outside of that, enjoy your footy, enjoy everything that's going on. Sorry, the thing I've got to mention is in Queensland, there's been a couple of businesses that have actually put on there, that have made a stipulation. Now, this is really weird, that anyone who has been vaccinated is not welcome in their business. And I find that fascinating. I absolutely find that fascinating. But anyway, we've run out of time. Look it up. Read about it. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Thank God that's over. If you didn't like it, leave a review to warn others, or share it with people you want to annoy. If you did like it, I'm sorry, you cannot be helped, so you may as well leave a good review. I guess the boys will appreciate it. As Curly would say, don't be an asshole. Hopefully, I won't see you next time. Goodbye.